Hello again. This week's project is a little bit more of a tool review than a project. I've recently received a set of 3 carbide chisels, which is something I've always wanted to try. Now these are from, I'm going to have to read this I'm afraid, these are from UK Woodcraft and Carbide Chisels.co.uk. Chap called Glen. Now you may have seen the video by Mike Waldt on a series of these chisels, some similar chisels, not the same as this, which I'll link to below, and please go and look at Mike's reviews, you'll find it very interesting. This set of chisels use a different profile of cutter. They have a very slim profile with a very small bevel rather than the larger profile that Mike was using. And these were designed by Glen, the manufacturer, to be of more use to the beginning wood turner. The flatter profile makes it very easy to remove wood, but there's a downside. The downside is quality. Not the quality of the tool. The tool quality is fantastic, and you can see it here, and other reviews will attain to that as well. Now it's the quality of the finish that is lacking when using these tools. Now I say lacking, it was very good, very acceptable. There are a few occasions when you'll see I have to drop down a grit when sanding and just start that a little bit sooner. That's simply because on this project today I wanted to use nothing but these tools. I could have used a gouge to clean up my work, but that wasn't the purpose. I wanted to show that I could do a bowl just using these tools and a bit of sandpaper. Anybody can do that. Anybody could pick up these tools, very tiny bit of training and awareness, and turn a bowl. And that's what I want to show with this video. There's 3 tools in the set. There's, I don't know whether you can actually see them from there, but I'll put some pictures in. There's a square cutter, a 12mm round cutter, and this detail tool which has a diamond tip, triangular end on the tip, for fine detail work. I found them extremely easy to use, as I've said, and I'm sure any new turner would find them a dream. So have a look at what I produce, see how easily I produce it, and make your own decisions, do your own research. I'm not a beginner turner, but I'm not the most experienced turner either, and I can see how these can fit into my standard workflow for fast removal and easy removal, comfortable removal of wood, especially from the inside of a bowl. In fact, even for shaping the outside of the bowl, I found the round cutter absolutely phenomenal for finding that shape with ease. And then I finished up with the square cutter to neaten the outside up. So have a look, follow through the video, make your own decision, see what you think. But certainly if you're in the UK, these are a viable option, and I have to say a hell of a lot cheaper, far cheaper than other brands in the UK. And obviously the ones in the UK tend to be imports from the US, though there are 1 or 2 other UK manufacturers. So have a look, make your own decisions, enjoy the video anyway. There's a nice little bit of bowl turning in there, and I will try to review the tools as I go along. So once again, thanks for tuning in, and enjoy. Bye bye. Having found the centre of the piece, I'm going to drill a hole now in order to take the screw chuck, which will then mount into the lathe. Now we can go ahead and mount it on the lathe. With the screw chuck now in the lathe, I can take the blank and wind that on. Keep going now until the shoulders of the chuck butt up against the piece. That's nice and square and nice and tight. it being square stock on the tool, it's very easy just to lay on the front, on the face there, and see how flat that is. That's fine. I'm now using my marking tool again to mark where the mortise will be. And now I'll use the square tool first of all, just to cut the mortise. Now I want to leave a foot on this piece, so I'm just going to mark the outside there. Now I'm going to use the round tool again to start eating away at the side. This cuts so easily, feels very safe, very secure. With it being flat stock, square stock, it feels locked onto the tool rest. I'm able to shape all the way around the side. There's a bit of torn grain on the ends, but nothing that another cut won't clear up. I'll use the square tool just to see if I can finally touch that. Now the square tools clean that up nicely. Now for a minute, there's no way this is a nice and clean a cut as you would get from a nice sharp gouge, but that wasn't the expectation. What we're showing here is using a set of three simple carbide cutters to see if we can do the whole bowl. Just turning the cutter now on the round cutter turning it on its side at about 45 degrees, and we're getting something similar to a sear cut. It's certainly very fine and very controlled. It's just clearing up the problems with the end grain. I was told by the manufacturer, Glen, that this new low profile cutter and this set of tools were designed for new turners. Well, I'm not a new turner by any means. I may not be the most experienced turner, but I love these tools. I won't use them for everything I turn, but I still have that bit of trepidation when I'm turning the outside of a bowl. I always do, and yet with these tools I feel extremely confident. Far more confident than I feel with a gouge. And yeah, I'm going to have to go down a grit of sandpaper and start that little bit lower, but I think it's worth it. I'll move on to some sanding. Just finishing sanding now at 600 grit. I was quite able to start sanding at 120. On a good day, using gougers, I can perhaps start at 240. Using the carbide, I definitely had to work from 120, but is that any great pain? Especially if you're a new turner? I think when I started turning, even with a gouge, I'd start sanding at 80. Putting a coat of sanding sealer now. I'll now give this its first coat of wax. Very cold in the shop today and the wax is quite hard, so let's give that time to rub in, let the friction melt it. I've got the tool rest aligned so that the cutter is right at the centre height when level. You can see how easy it's removing the wood. Now look at what sort of finish we're achieving. when I'm turning a bowl, especially if it's a new wood to me or a new tool, I tend to start turning and clear a bit of wood away, and then try and treat the inside of that as if it's the finished bowl. So what finishing cuts do I need to do in order to get that nice and smooth? What I'm finding here is that I've got a very good surface, but I can achieve, so it's the first time I've used this in this method, I can achieve quite a nice finishing cut. Not as good as a gouge again, but still more than acceptable. So I'll go on and turn some more wood away. One downside to these tools, the cuttings go absolutely everywhere. If you don't wear a face shield, you're a fool if you're using a tool like this. It flies in your face, down your shirt, absolutely everywhere. I'm not quite at my final depth yet. I'm taking the opportunity to try my finishing cuts. It's a new tool to me. I don't know what it can achieve. Of course, now it's just got a hole in it like that when I get a catch. You'll get some fairly fine shavings coming out here. Feels so much safer than the gouge. I know I'm not getting as good a cut, but again, if I was a new turner, this will give me so much confidence. I don't know if it's because of the way it cuts, or whether it's because of the weight and the square stock. I don't know. Very enjoyable. Having the 3 separate hand positions here is great. It gives me good control from the back or fine control from the front. We're down to the sanding stage now, and despite being extremely impressed with these carbide tools, I couldn't get a finish I was happy with on the inside. It wasn't a bad finish, but there was some torn grain that I just wasn't shifting with the tool. As a result, I'm having to go down to 80 grit sandpaper and kind of start from there. But I'm not asking myself if that's really a problem. Yes, it would be nice to use a gouge and have perfectly cut grain every single time. These tools weren't sold on that basis. They're advertised as being for beginners. It's quite clear from Glen's advertising of the product that it's a much rougher cut, but an easier cut. And from that, I've got to say, it's 100% correct. It's probably the easiest tool I've ever used in bowl turning. Glen does sell a range of other tools and other carbide tips that are that do give a much finer cut, but that's not what I'm trialling. I'm trialling these for beginners. Just at the turn of the bottom and at the end grain, that's where I just couldn't shift the tear out. Let's go in with the paper. I've just finished the waxing of the inside. I don't know whether you can see the chatoyance on this wood, the shine. Somebody asked me the other day what chatoyance meant, or did I tell them what chatoyance meant? It's from the French for cat's eyes. You think about how cat's eyes reflect the light. Beautiful wood for that. Alright, so I'm going to turn it around now, put it on the button jaws, on the coal jaws, and we'll finish the bottom. I'm just going to mount the bowl now in my coal jaws, the button jaws, and just to protect the bowl I've covered the ends in painter's tape. And I just find that if there's any movement of the bowl when it's in the jaws, that just protects the finish. This wants to be fastened firm but not too tight. I have cracked a bowl before by going too tight here. That seems fine. I'm going to bring up, to start with, the tailstock for some support. That will allow me to turn a little bit faster and get a much better finish. The jaws are only supposed to be used at around about 600 RPM when unsupported, but I think supported I can perhaps lift that to maybe 1000 without too much problem. And now back with the round carbide tool, I'm going to start turning away the foot. Well, now finally I'm going to use the detail gouge of the set, which has this diamond triangular finish, and just put a couple of little rings in there. Once again, because I'm using the Carbide tools, the finish isn't as nice as a gouge. Still fairly acceptable though. I'll be starting my sanding at about 120 grit. I'll come back to you when I'm done. They've all sanded up now, been all the way through the grits. I'm just ready for a sanding sealer. I keep this just in a small bottle. It's easy to give a quick shake and then apply. On the cloth and then onto the surface. Wait a second. Nice smooth finish. There we go. And then we'll give that a coat of wax. Turn the speed up a little. I'm mindful of the fact that I'm on the cold jaws, on the button jaws. I don't want to turn the speed up too high. And there we go. Once again you can see the fabulous chatoyance of this wood. Really is quite something. And there we go. Simple little bowl. Ah, there we go. There's the bowl complete. Now this has been a great little exercise. This is the first time I've ever used Carbide tools. I wanted to try them anyway, so you know this is fantastic. But what I ended up with here is this set that has been redesigned. I use that word carefully, and this is basically Glen's standard tool set, but he's changed the cutters for cutters with a much flatter profile, which make turning a lot easier, a lot simpler, specifically towards new turners, but decreases the quality of the finish. And the quality, you know, the finish isn't a high quality finish. You know, you've seen that in the video, and I knew that would be the case. You know, as I went into the turning, but the finish is very acceptable. I did in areas have to drop down to 1 grit lower in order to sand out some of the marks, but they were a dream to use. I mean, that's some of the easiest turning I've ever done. Now it's fair to say, if something's easy, what's wrong? You know, harder turning is better turning. Obviously there are ways to make life easier for you. I can see circumstances where I will happily use these tools day in, day out. It made me a lot more relaxed with my turning, and that's not a bad thing. For speed of removal of wood, I don't think you can beat Carbide. I mean, that was phenomenal. It was just so easy and so fast. But with that, there seems to be less control over where the chippings are going, and you do get well and truly covered if you're hogging out that wood with a round cutter. I had a little exercise yesterday, and I introduced my wife to one of the tools, and she does do some turning, but she had a bad experience a couple of years ago and became a reluctant turner. We gave her the inside of a bowl to turn out, something that she'd been working on for a while. She took to that gouge, to the round Carbide tool immediately, and you know, said it was the best thing that's happened to her, and it's rejuvenated her confidence in turning bowls. And that's a prime example, and one of the reasons that I actually wanted the Carbide Tools in the first place was to get her back to turning. So all I can say is this set of 3 tools from Glen are absolutely phenomenal, certainly for the beginner, and they do have use in my everyday turning. And I shall perhaps be looking to Glen now to see what other tools he has that perhaps will give me a finer finish for the inside and outside of bowls. Absolutely wonderful. I shall try using them on some spindle work over the next few weeks and try and introduce that video to you. We'll see how they compare there. I've already tried a little bit of roughing with them. Very good. So there we are. I'll put Glen's details at the bottom of the video and in the description, so that you can contact him if that's something that's of use to you. If you're watching outside the UK, obviously the supplier is of no use to you. Well, it may ship internationally, actually, that's something to check, but there's always a supplier in your own country for Carbide Tools. This was about these low profile tips and how well they perform, and we've certainly shown that they perform very well within the confines of expectation. So thank you very much to Glen, and thanks to you for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you next time, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye bye now.